What's up, everybody? You're listening to Salah's Corner with the one and only Salah Muhammad. A couple of weeks ago, I got out there and I did a little bit of volunteering at a community center that focuses on creating positive experiences and safe spaces for Black youth. And it was a really good, empowering opportunity for me to kind of give back to my community and get out there and do something positive for someone else. So it made me want to reach out to Carlos. Carlos hosts the We Love Philly podcast here in the city of Philadelphia. He's a school teacher, and he does something unique. His podcast is built around volunteering, but he does it with his students. And he takes it not just in the classroom, but in his everyday life. We talk about that. We talk about the importance of community. It's something I've gone back to a lot over this podcast. You'll hear in this conversation how Carlos works to fight some of the stigmas that exist for his students, but also the fighting tide of how do we keep our youth engaged in the age of social media and everything that's trying to constantly get our attention. So I've had a lot of people coming to me asking me where I find the time and the space to make all of these podcasts happen. Well, I have to thank the folks at Rec Philly. They provide me the space, the equipment, and the networking capacity to make this take off. And it's not just for other podcasts. Other creative individuals use this space as well. We're talking musicians, photographers, anyone that considers themselves a creative individual. So if that's you, head over to Rec Philly. Visit them on Instagram. And if you find yourself wanting a membership, tell them Salah sent you. Carlos, how are you today?
I am living the dream.
So, the living the dream. I like that. I have those sayings that I say to somebody, and I always try to catch them off guard.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, I'll be walking through work, and I'll be like, somebody will come up to me and go, "How are you today?" I'm fantastic, and I go, "Wow, fantastic." Yeah, why not? Right?
My favorite is when I ask the students how they're doing, and they say good, and then I say why, and they just look at me like, but I thought I'm just supposed to say good and like walk away. Like we're supposed to continue this conversation because it's such like a what's the word?
It's a formality.
Yeah,
it's just
exactly,
like it's almost the same as saying hello to someone, and then that's just kind of it. And it's just like, well, no, if you're gonna ask me,
exactly.
let me tell you how I feel.
Every time they're like, why? And I have to tell you why. They're like, I don't know, I was chilling. I was like, well, what's chilling? Like, what would not be chilling then if you can't explain what is chilling?
Exactly.
Like, what's the opposite? And they're like, why are you always trying to get us to think? I'm like, because that's my job.
Yeah, and that's so important, and I think sometimes people take that for granted. That like, why do I have to think? And it's like, well, everyone should be thinking about something, some aspect of everything that they're doing. So thinking is not just for when you have to do something very critical. It's
and you can pick it up. Like if you're in the moment and you see that it's something that's useful. Oh, I could start doing that, and then maybe I can have longer conversations with people, and then maybe I can make a connection, and then maybe this might lead somewhere instead of just a head nod.
Right.
There's so many more possibilities. You're upping your chances so much.
You are
to for something unexpected to happen than just a
hi.
Like maybe that person was really meant to be put in your life, and there you go. There's another opportunity that walked by you because of
I like the way you think.
Yeah.
So tell us who you are. You are Carlos.
Yeah. So I'm Carlos Aponte. I am a high school teacher at One Bright Ray Community High School. I've been teaching overage and undercredited students in North Philly, Southwest Philly, and I work at a program where it's a student's last chance to get a diploma before they can before they have to get the GED. So dropouts, court order, just the students that everyone thinks it's too late. So that's the student population I picked because I have a really similar background and I can relate to them, and I love it. And
I didn't ask you last time, but what's I know you said you're the age range is 16 to 21. So why is 21 like the limit for you to?
So in order for students to get a high school diploma, they have to be enrolled at our program at 21 because then it's too late to get the high school diploma, but that was the case when the program just opened. But now we're the first program in the city of Philadelphia to offer a high school diploma from age 22 and up.
Oh,
So
very cool.
before that was never the case, and 21 was the cutoff. They had to have been enrolled. So if it took them 2 years and it had 0 credits, they could technically get their high school diploma at 23,
Gotcha.
as long as they were
Enrolled by 21.
But now, I mean, I don't. Maybe it has to do with the age, like you're with 16-year-olds. Maybe it's an insurance thing, but yeah. But I know before, and this is like maybe the first full year of the adult program, and like I said, it's the first in the city. So before that, there was none. It was 21, and that was it. You have to get your GED. But now, I was told the other day we have 60-year-olds in the high school diploma, the adult
Seriously?
program at night. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, the range is from 22 to however old you can want to get that high school diploma.
That's amazing. How did you really navigate toward this very specific line of work? Because I think I don't think anyone, at least I've never come across anyone, when they're thinking about becoming a teacher, they go, well, I want to target people who have only one more opportunity to get a high school diploma.
Yeah. Well, I believe really big in synchronicities. So before I was at this job, I was serving and bartending in North Philadelphia on Temple's campus.
Nice.
And I one day legitimately said, all right, I've been graduated for a year. I have my diploma. I'm ready to teach in Philadelphia. Like, it's my calling. I'm going to do it. Literally went and applied at one place, One Bright Ray Community High School. Literally the next day, got the phone call saying, okay, you can have an interview. And I was like, oh, wow, this is fast. Like, I know a lot of teacher friends who are like, yeah, I've been looking for this long. I've been looking for this long. And then day 2, I had the job interview. Found out 3 hours later I have the job. So within 48 hours, I was an employee at One Bright Ray, and I took over for a teacher that got fired mid-year, and I started January 2nd, 2014, and I hit the ground running. But the reason why I only applied at this one place was the description, was seeing that there's 16 to 21-year-olds who didn't make it in regular high school, and that really struck the chord with me because of my own high school experience and knowing the type of background that I came from, and knowing that a lot of these students who enter the school district of Philadelphia and who enter high school are coming in with the mentality that no one cares, right? So thinking that no one cared about me growing up and I didn't get that same sort of love, that same sort of attention, I said, well, if I want that in my life now, at the time I was 24 and I was so full of ego.
Yeah.
But at the time it was starting to crack, right? Yeah. Like that dark night of the soul was just upon me, where I was going to realize how much of trauma that I've been passing on, generational trauma. But I said, okay, this is it. Like, if I want to start my life and start to do the right thing, then I need to do it with the people who I know have never experienced it. And I believe, I would say the second biggest reason I did it is because I figured this student population as well was going to be able to teach me just as much as I was going to be able to teach them.
I too am a product of the Philadelphia school system, and I believe I was fortunate enough in the sense that I had some really great teachers at the right moments. But I also had that same feeling of, the teachers really are just here to collect the check.
Yeah.
They're not really interested in my success, and, they're really just here to ride out the day and just kind of.
It's so unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I don't know how you can do that and go home and be cool with it. Like it just really, even to this day, I'm like, okay, you're an educator. You're in the classroom. You've been in school all your life as an educator, right? Like, I've literally been inside of a classroom since I was 4 years old. Like, there was no breaks. I was just always inside of a classroom in some capacity. You know how vital that one teacher is, or that one adult who shows they care. And you knew how angry everyone else made and how much you blamed everyone else for how your life was because they didn't care. So you were like, what's the point?
Right.
And for you to be a teacher and to go in the classroom and be that teacher who doesn't care, I I feel like it should be like there should be like a criminal offense to that. Like, you legit are messing up the future of our country. You're messing up the future of our city. These are the people who are going to take over this city of Philadelphia. You have a responsibility when you go inside that classroom to at least do your best, right? Like, that's the cliche teacher phrase. Do your best. And then for you to not do your best and to sit back on your tenure, or you sit back and you hide behind the union, or you hide behind whatever red tape that you're hiding behind, because I put in my 10 years, I put in my 20 years, so whatever, what's a couple kids who might not like, that mindset is, yeah, it's unbelievable. I can't believe it's a thing amongst teachers.
I never really thought about it in that perspective of a criminal offense, but it makes sense though, right? Like, you're sabotaging the future of a community, because you're lazy.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, and you have to be conscious of it. Right. There's no way you're not conscious of it,
right?
Because you're saying those same exact things to the kids. Why are you lazy? Why aren't you doing your work? Why aren't you doing your work? Right. I don't know if you've seen it on social media, but that kid. Yes, I just saw that. Yes. So
there's a kid that he basically calls out a teacher, and I'll summarize, but it was basically like, it's your job to inspire us, and if you just come in and say, go to your textbook and do this, and then you just sit there all day, you're not inspiring us, you're not leading us, you're not setting the right example. It's profound that a kid is that knowledgeable and understanding that dynamic isn't supposed to work, and then able to speak to that in front of the teacher and show that, this is what you're doing is broken. And I can imagine so many of your students feel that way.
Yes. And I feel like, I don't know if this is just the high school level, but I feel like high school, not to make apologies for the teachers, but I feel like the high school time was such an influential time in everyone's life, that when these teachers do see these high school students and they're treating them in that negative, that uncaring way, it's because of the preconception that, well, when I was in high school, I did it this way, and I was successful, so why aren't you doing it? I was this. And it's like, are you kidding me? You were in high school in 1980, 1990? Just a simple fact that social media exists today and the internet completely changes the game. Like, completely changes the game in every way, shape, or form. Like, for you to be a teacher and not even to use, like, for you to be a teacher in a classroom for 20, 30 years, I understand, like, you're exhausted. Right, the burnout is real. Right, I think the percent when I went to Temple University and I was in my senior year, and I don't know why they waited to senior year to tell us this, but we had a teacher. We walked in and they said, "Look to your left, look to your right. 70% of you won't be teaching after 5 years." They said that's the burnout. Right, that's how often everyone leaves teaching after 5 years.
Wow,
but with the internet, if you've been teaching for that long, you have an entire library of resources to where it'll take a little bit of reading and maybe switching a thing here or there, but you can use all of that to at least freshen up your lessons. You know what I mean? And for you not to do it, it's a sin. It really is.
And let's talk about that a little bit, because are you seeing that was one of the driving forces into why your job exists, essentially? Because the failure of those teachers, and not saying that that's all teachers, but that large element, why someone 21 and still doesn't have their high school diploma.
Yes, it definitely does. That the stories I hear coming from different schools throughout the city they sound like horror stories, right? I really don't know a population that's more observant than 16 to 21-year-olds today. Like, they might not know why they're doing what they're doing, and they might not see how their actions are causing things, but they see how other people's actions are causing things, right? Like, it's something we learned as children, to be able to point out problems. I mean, at 16 to 21, like, you're really good at pointing out problems.
Absolutely.
You're really good at pointing the finger. I mean, you're not so much good at finding the solutions yet, which is understandable, but these kids can tell immediately when someone isn't being real, authentic, trying hard, or caring, right? I believe when you're a younger person and you don't have as much on your mind, you can really pick up that energy and those vibes off of people, and you can see who and feel who cares and then who doesn't care.
Yet the social stigma, the stereotype for that demographic is, it's their fault. that they've gotten to this moment in their life, right? Like they've made the bad choices among themselves, not that it's been a failure of the teaching community, of our education system, but also our community at large.
Yeah, I would go more the community at large. And once again, I'm with 16 to 21-year-olds who, like I said, didn't make it in the public school system. And I spoke on it earlier, but I would still say, I wouldn't say the schooling is the biggest problem. I would more speak on the generational trauma is the biggest problem. You only know what you know and what's passed on to you through your parents, through what you see, through not what you see only from your parents, but your community, your neighbors, pretty much everyone. When you grow up in poverty and you grow up in generational trauma, you really don't believe that there's another way.
Right.
Like me in the classroom being the hyper guy, I have 3 tenets I always tell the students and I always live by, and I try to get them to hold me accountable at all times for it and call me out if I'm not. But I tell them, in order for you to make it in life and in order for you to build, you have to have a foundation. If you build a house on a shoddy foundation, that house is going to collapse when adversity comes, right? Hurricane, tornado, whatever it is, it's going to collapse. It's the same with your life. If your foundation isn't strong and you build on a shoddy foundation, it's going to come collapsing on you. And that's when people give up. They turn to drugs. They unfortunately turn to suicide, and they can't face the fact that they realize that, oh my God, I created my life this way because of this foundation. So I try to tell them all the time, my foundation is peace, love, positivity. And for them to even hear an adult say that, when they stare at me, they're like, it looks like their heads are going to explode. They're like, what are you talking about?
Right.
You're not like this outside of school. This isn't your real life. This isn't what you do. And I was like,
you're just a cliche, basically.
Yeah. No, you're just saying that because you're the teacher and you want us to do it. I'm like, no, this is it. And then I feel like that foundation's what drove me to start We Love Philly, because I'm like, okay, I think you don't think I'm serious about this, and I don't think you think that there's really other people besides me who have a foundation that they're building upon that's similar. It might not be the same, but it's pretty similar. And I'm going to show you, and you're going to see it. And then I feel like that sort of moment, that sort of mentorship is like that. I don't want to say kick in the butt, but that's like that.
It's a nice kick in the butt, though, because it's such a, to see someone living what they preach is so much more impactful, because you start to figure out different ways you can apply that same mindset and way of thinking to your own life, in a sense, right? Like the second they see you falter or misstep, it's like, well, everything you've been really preaching to us is just, it's nonsense, right? You don't believe it, so why should I? And so I can imagine that's incredibly impactful, and is a nice kick in the butt.
And it's cool, right? Like I'm not perfect. This is my foundation. Hold me accountable. If I slip up, I'm human. I'm going to apologize. I'm going to show the humility, right? Which is another thing that needs to be modeled to youth, especially 16 and 21-year-olds, especially when you're that full of ego and you think that you either have it figured out or no one can tell you anything, or why am I apologizing, or how will I look? Like everyone's going to think I'm some punk if I do this, and this. And I'm like, no, like this is it. You're human. That's part of the love, right? I have to forgive myself for slipping. I have to have that self-love. And if I can model that for students, then the city's just going to benefit from it. I
agree 100%. And that's kind of what you said earlier speaks exactly to that generational trauma of not having that foundation of, it's okay to feel. It's okay to have those missteps. The important part of it is you have a basis of some type of recovery, right? Like you have something that you can fall back on, and if that doesn't exist, the trauma just stays with you and just gets passed on to your next child.
It's so real, especially with our young males. It's so real. I've had young males in my office one-on-one. I create a safe space for them. They open up. And you can see that they want to cry. And that cry is that release, right? It's like you releasing it. And then you can reflect after the cry and be like, It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It will pass, right? You need that cry. I don't know what chemical's being released, but you need it. And it looks like they're going through more pain trying not to cry than it actually just talking about it and letting themselves cry.
Yeah.
And it's such a heartbreaker because you're like, you were taught that.
Right.
That was
Right.
a learned behavior from someone in your family, someone that you know told you that that wasn't cool, that you'll be seen as a punk, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the biggest heartbreaker because that cry is so needed. I recall the cry when I had it, when I realized, and I was like, oh my God, like, yes, it's not your fault.
No.
Right? It's not your fault.
And I mean, anyone who is going through that process of healing, which is almost a never-ending process because there's always something. We've all been there. You know that feeling where it's just like, I really need a good release. Yes. So it allows me to just reset and tackle my life a little bit fresh. You talked about We Love Philly. Tell us about We Love Philly.
Yes. So We Love Philly was an idea I had because since dealing with these 16 to 21-year-olds who probably didn't have the best school experience, right? So I teach history. So while I'm in the classroom teaching history, I noticed that some of the students are like, they're stuck in the mindset that school isn't a place for them to learn because of their past experience, right. Or school is a place where a lot of my traumas happen because I haven't been able to read since 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, right? Or I haven't read a book since The Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and here you are talking about the Enlightenment era and philosophical thinkers, right? So I'm like, all right, I know what helped me a lot to help me learn a lot about myself and why I did the things I did was changing my environment. So I said, all right, I'm in a city where the United States was born. There's so much history here. There's so many landmarks. There's so much nature. I need to figure out a way to change the classroom from the typical classroom that's been set up for the past 100 years in our education system that's never been reformed. And I was like, all right, well, it's time to use the city. It's time to use what we have in the city to teach students a values-based education. So my first goal was like, all right, I need to teach these students the values that we might not have learned growing up or we don't see yet as teenagers, right? Like self-love, self-discipline, respecting others, etc. And then once I got students outside and volunteering, and them seeing that they have a self-worth, right? A lot of the students, they don't think that they have a self-worth or they've never done positive things. So for them to go into a place, volunteer for a few hours and see that they could impact hundreds of people on a closed drive, or they can feed hundreds of people by putting together meals, or they can make a whole bunch of people smile who are in a way lower, worse off position than them. That was the fireworks that were going off in the student's head. That was the aha moment. And I was like, okay, let's keep expanding on We Love Philly. Okay, values-based education. All right, we're doing community service. What else? And then students were like, I noticed over the years, they were like, we want to all own our own businesses. And I was like, okay, I need to tie entrepreneurship in here. So I was like, okay, how can I tie entrepreneurship in here? And then I started doing my own research and said, okay, I need to create the model, right? Most good teachers, they're modeling the finished product before they teach it to the students so they can know all the ins and outs of something, right? They don't want to just wing it and go, hey, we'll figure it out as we go, because then you lose credibility with the students. They're like, you don't know what you're talking about. And they're looking for the reasons to discredit you off the bat as teenagers. Immediately. So I went in for 6 to 9 months and just constantly was figuring out how to edit video, edit audio, do all of the entrepreneur, create the content, network, do all of the things that I can create lesson plans around to slow release this, gradual release it to my students. And that's where We Love Philly was born. I
can imagine getting your students out of the classroom the first few times to do volunteering was probably like dragging like a 2-year-old to bed when they don't want to go to sleep. What was that like?
It was a struggle. It was definitely a struggle, but I was super blessed. If any of my followers are listening to this podcast, they know of Kasim. And when I tell you Kasim is legit, I don't even know how to explain him, but like he's like a legitimate angel. Like he is the most conscious, loving, just young person I've ever met, ever. And then he jumped on the We Love Philly program immediately, and I was like, oh wow, you're going to help me spread this to the other students, and like just them seeing how happy you are and you talking about it in school. So I was super, super grateful to have him. The other students definitely took a while, but all I had to do was get them out of the classroom. All you have to do is come to one event, because when they come to one event, right, young people this day and age, there's one thing that will get their attention, and that's instant gratification.
Yes.
And that volunteer work is instant gratification. You're seeing the result of your work immediately in smiles and thank yous, and we wish you want to come back, like please come back again. And hey, we're going to buy you lunch for coming out. All of those things happen on the same event day. And then they're like, oh, this is fun.
Right.
And then the added bonus, they're getting off their block. They're seeing new parts of Philly. They have no idea how much opportunity is in Philly. They really, a lot of them where I teach think it's the worst place on earth, because they only know their block. They only know their neighborhood. They only know that generational trauma that they're coming from. They haven't seen anything else. And yeah, just to get them out the door, right? Which is, if you think about it, you compare it to our lives, it's everything. Starting is always the hardest thing. And just to get them to start, then it's spread.
That's amazing. You were able to understand the need for the instant gratification, especially in the age of social media, because that's so heavy into what captures even our generation, but even specifically younger minds, right? They need that instant gratification. How many likes, how many retweets, how many comments on my picture, how much everything.
Even video games.
Yes.
Right? Like everything in a video game is an instant reward to keep you playing it
Absolutely.
over and over and over.
So to take that and turn volunteering into that new form of instant gratification. I've done a little bit of volunteer work, and you're right. It's you leave feeling like you want to give yourself a pat on the back, and you want that pat on the back as much as possible afterwards. It's like, well, let's find the next opportunity. Let's schedule some time I can come back. Let's find someone else that I can volunteer for. And it's amazing. That's an amazing feeling that I don't think can be replicated in a lot of ways.
It really can't. And it's just what it does for your mental health.
Yes.
It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable to when you are given the opportunity to be of service, and you can really live that saying, you have to give in order to receive. And that's the way you really see if it's true. You're giving for 2 to 3 hours, but then you're receiving for the rest of the night, 6-7 hours. You're just glowing. You're like, I did this. You're telling everyone. You're like, hey, all right. And then that's what Philly needs, right? City of brotherly love, sisterly affection. Spread the word. You volunteered. It felt good. Why do you have to go to a bar every Friday night? Why do you have to go to a bar every Saturday night? Why can't we wake up Sunday afternoon, Saturday afternoon, go volunteer together, feel good, right? Talk about it, and you know what I mean? You're going to network and communicate, and I believe you're going to meet better people at a volunteer event than at a bar at 1 a.m. Like
100% agreed. What would you say, though, and I don't think I asked you this the last time we talked, about those, the people I imagine who would benefit the most from volunteering are also the people that are working second and third shifts. They got their head down in the weeds of life and are just trying to keep their head afloat, right? Like they have kids at home, maybe they don't, but they have a job that they don't necessarily like. They're working these hours, and they don't have that same sense of community. What would you? And I say that from someone who came from that life, right? Like you may have had the idea or wanted to do some volunteering, but you just didn't. I didn't know how it was going to fit into my schedule. It sounds great, the instant gratification, but when I've never done it, I can't really grasp it yet.
Yeah.
Like what would you say to those group of people?
I think you hit it on the head. You said it. It's that sense of community, right? I think human beings are really tribal, right?
Yes.
All throughout our evolution, we've always been in packs. We've always been together. You've always had a strong sense of community. And I think that burnout feeling that I hate my job, I have to do this 9 to 5, right? You see all these memes, like when someone at work asks you a question and it's just like someone being rude to someone else, right? Yes. That you're lacking the sense of community that's in your DNA. And it's weird. It's like going to the gym, right? Like I tell my students, you go to the gym in the morning, it seems like you're doing a lot waking up and working out, but you're going to have so much more energy the rest of the day after you work out in the morning. It's the same, I think, with volunteering. You're taking the time out, you're being a service to others, and now you're going to receive all of that extra energy that then you can go and use and be productive throughout the day. And then when you get off, you're like, all right, maybe I don't like my job. It was a 9 to 5. I'm in the weeds. I'm exhausted. I'm burnt out, but I volunteered for an hour and it made it a lot more bearable.
Yeah.
And then maybe, just maybe, you can maybe make a career out of it somehow. I mean, if 1 hour gave you that much joy and gave you that much more energy, maybe that will help you see that you're meant to do more than hate your job and hate life for 8 hours a day. Like it's not, I don't think it's what we're meant to do.
I completely agree. I know I come from the generation that taught you weren't necessarily meant to love your job. You were meant to just have a job so you can provide some stability to family. And I think we're breaking away from that generation of, no, you should be able to find some satisfaction in the thing you're doing most of the day and the place you're spending more time than you sometimes are with your family.
Yeah, and that benefits everyone.
Yes.
Right? It goes from this is my duty to I'm having fun doing this. And whenever you have fun doing it, you want to share it.
Absolutely.
You have better thoughts. You're more positive. You're going to think of different creative ways. More opportunities are going to come. You're going to meet more people. You're going to be all around happier. You're going to have more energy. And that, that's going to drive the economy and our system, however it's set up, it's just going to make it better. I feel like the way it's been done in the past has hit the wall that it was supposed to hit, right?
Yeah.
It's either you don't like your job, you don't feel fulfilled, and you don't feel like you're doing work that's making an impact. Well, if you feel that way, listen to yourself, take the leap, and go do something that you legitimately get excited about. Like you have to take that leap. You have to. I saw it on graffiti on my way to work the other day. When you take the leap, the net will appear.
Yeah.
But you have to take the leap first, and it will come. It will show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't know, where was that? I've never seen that in the city.
I ride my bicycle everywhere, and I see so many like just aha moments, and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, that's awesome. And then, of course, the teacher in me, and I have to reflect. I'm like, what leap do I have to take?
Yeah. Everyone has a leap, and sometimes it's just sitting down and figuring it out. But it's amazing how when you are in a positive mindset, like clearly you are in, you start to notice those quotes a lot more than when you're in. You're not in that right frame of mind.
I forget. I feel like there's a term for it.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah. I tell that to my students all the time. I'm like, you know how when you get a car, and they're like, yeah, and you get your car, you think no one has it, and then when you start driving it, you start seeing your car everywhere.
Absolutely.
It's because your mind is open to you. This is now on your radar. So if you can put positivity, if you can put peace, if you can put love on your radar, if you can make it something that you want to notice, you're going to start seeing it so much more. But if we're, you know what I mean? I mean, it's not their fault. It's the trauma, but we're constantly in this is the worst. This is negative. It's not going to get better. Why are we even trying? Aren't we all going to be underwater soon anyway? I don't like what?
Yeah.
No, right? This is the test. This is where the leap, you have to take that leap, right? And once we all take the leap, everything's going to get better. You really have to believe. That's why I think kindergarten teachers are like, they're the most inspirational people ever.
Yes.
Every kindergarten teacher you walk in, it's the realest thing I've ever learned in school, and it really didn't hit me until I was in my 20s, but it really is. If you believe it, you can achieve it.
Yeah.
And it's just like the realest lesson ever. Yeah.
The most cliche of sayings is like the most true saying.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And that's why you don't see your car, because you've never seen it before and you didn't know it was a thing. But now that you believe that you have a car, and now you're going to see it everywhere. And if you start believing, you're going to start seeing.
positive motivational speaker. You should think about getting into motivational speaking.
Surprisingly, it's the number one thing I need to work on.
Really?
In a classroom to 16 to 21-year-olds, perfectly fine.
Yeah.
On my game, one-on-one, perfectly fine. On my game, room full of 100 people who are older than me, I feel like I'm still trying to let go of some
very interesting.
Some of that trauma that was passed on to me of caring what other people think, and
I'm sure there's a
social anxiety,
a type of thing that's called or something in the world out there, but we'll leave that for greater minds to figure out.
I'm gonna get better. It's on the list. It's on the list, definitely.
Well, Carlos Aponte, We Love Philly podcasts. Thank you. What's the website that we can find some volunteer work?
WeLovePhilly.org. There's a volunteer calendar on it. We update it weekly. If you want to volunteer, all you have to do is go to the calendar, click, and we try to put fun first-time volunteer experiences so you could get your feet wet the right way, right? I don't want you sitting at a desk your first time entering data, right?
Yeah.
Like get you outside in nature, get you around a bunch of people. So, there's the volunteer calendar on the website. All of our podcast episodes are on the website. There's a blog on the website. It's at We Love Philly on Instagram, at WeLove.Philadelphia on Facebook. And if you know any 16 to 21-year-olds who are not having a good time at their high school, go on our page. There's an Enroll Now button, and you can enroll at One Bright Right Community High School. Make sure you pick the Fair Hill campus because that's where I'm at currently. And I just was given permission by switching up the We Love Philly program a little bit. I can offer students a high school credit for doing the program now. And if you want a second chance or you just want a different high school experience, come to the Fair Hill campus of One Bright Right Community High School. We can get you signed up for the We Love Philly program, and you can make that a part, that entrepreneur volunteer service. You can make that a part of your curriculum and go out into the city and do something about all the problems you keep seeing everywhere.
That's really cool. Thank you. I always enjoy talking to you, Carlos.
Thank you. Well.
Thank you.
Appreciate you a lot.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to give a very special thanks to Carlos for sitting with me on the podcast today. Download, rate, subscribe to his podcast, We Love Philly. It's really cool. Also, visit his website where you can find opportunities to volunteer. And when it comes to volunteering, I know it can be really difficult sometimes, especially if you have family, you have kids at home, you have a full-time job, you're an entrepreneur, you got a lot of things on your plate. But it's rewarding, if not for the people who you are helping, whatever volunteer you decide to sign up for. It's empowering for yourself. It makes you just feel good. It is personally rewarding. If not for anything else, do it for that reason. You'll find that no matter how hard or how difficult or how small the task you are doing, it is personally empowering. Thank you for all of who always listen and subscribe. Don't forget, rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to Salah's Corner. For any questions, topics, anytime you want to disagree with me, email me at realtalk@salahscorner.com. Salah's Corner is recorded out of Rec Philly, is produced by producer extraordinaire Bree Wilson, and features music from Prod by Delgado. For more of my work, please visit salahscorner.com. And as always, until next time, peace, y'all.